It began with a sound no one expected. In a room full of tension where every eye was locked on the stage, Ivanka Trump leaned slightly forward, allowed a small pause, and then released a sharp laugh. It wasn't a laugh of humor or charm, but of mockery, directed like a spear at Jasmine Crockett. That sound alone was enough to freeze the air. Cameras caught it instantly, and before Ivanka had even finished her next sentence, the clip was already racing through social media timelines, replayed with captions like, "The laugh heard across America." People watching at home knew something unusual was happening. Ivanka, often the most guarded and careful member of her family, had just crossed into open confrontation. She had chosen to abandon politeness and make a stand with a gesture that spoke louder than words. Ridicule. The backdrop to this clash had been building for weeks. Jasmine Crockett, a congresswoman rising in national prominence, had carved out her reputation as someone who would not bow to power. She had confronted Republicans in committee hearings with the kind of fiery rhetoric that went viral. She had accused the Trump dynasty of deception, secrecy, and arrogance, pulling no punches when she called out their scandals. When the bombshell DNA revelations involving Baron Trump exploded into headlines and Melania's furious responses dominated coverage, Crockett seized the spotlight. She insisted that the family's carefully manufactured image was cracking, that the truth was surfacing no matter how much money or influence they threw at it. To her supporters, she was fearless, willing to voice what others whispered. To Ivanka, it was calculated exploitation, and it cut too close to the bone. She had kept silent as her family weathered storms, but Crockett's relentless words had reached a limit. And when Ivanka finally responded, she did it not from a press release or a controlled interview, but live, on a stage, with the nation watching. "Congresswoman Crockett," Ivanka said, her voice calm but carrying an edge so sharp it almost drew blood. "You talk about truth as if you own it, but the only thing you own is hypocrisy." The crowd reacted instantly, some gasping, some clapping, some booing. Crockett's eyes narrowed, and the battle began. She shot back that Ivanka's so-called poise was nothing but privilege disguised as dignity, that she had stayed silent through corruption and scandal while benefiting from the Trump empire. Her words, fast and cutting, drew cheers from her side of the audience. But Ivanka wasn't rattled. She leaned in further, prepared, quoting Crockett's own past interviews where she had contradicted herself on matters of campaign funding and ethics. "You call my family dishonest," Ivanka pressed, "yet you've changed your story whenever it suited your ambition. Is that the truth you claim to defend?" The room was electric. Every word became fuel for a fire that spread instantly to the outside world. On Twitter, hashtags like #IvankaVS and #Clapback of the Year started trending before the segment had even finished. Commentators typed furiously, pundits interrupted each other on live television, and political podcasts scrambled to clip the exchange. For supporters of Ivanka, it was the first time they saw her unleash herself unfiltered, stepping down from elegance and into the pit with the ferocity of someone protecting her family. For fans of Crockett, it was proof that the Trumps could not handle being called out without resorting to insults and deflection. But one thing was certain: no one could look away. Crockett raised her voice, her words striking like thunder. "You want to lecture me on ambition? Your family built an empire on lies, and the world knows it. You want to talk about hypocrisy? Hypocrisy is selling yourself as the face of grace while your father tears this country apart." Her supporters in the crowd erupted in applause, while Ivanka simply waited for the noise to die down. Then she delivered her counter with icy precision. "You confuse volume with virtue," she said softly, but the microphone carried her words across the entire hall. "America doesn't need more shouting. It needs honesty. And if you want to talk about corruption, maybe start by looking in the mirror." The confrontation escalated beyond mere words. Each line landed like a blow, and each response was sharper than the last. Ivanka referenced Crockett's temper during committee hearings, painting her as more interested in theatrics than the solutions. "You've turned outrage into your career," she said firmly. "Anger is your brand, and America deserves better than a performance." Crockett fired back instantly, accusing Ivanka of gaslighting, of twisting the narrative to escape responsibility. "You think you can intimidate me with polished lines? I don't fear your family, and I don't fear your money. I speak for the people who've had enough of your games." The words hung heavy in the air, a duel between two women who knew the stakes extended far beyond personal rivalry. It was about image, legacy, and power in the rawest form. By this point, millions were glued to screens. Live streams surged as viewers demanded to witness every second. Journalists described the clash as unprecedented, not because political figures hadn't fought before, but because this was Ivanka's first time dropping the mask. She was no longer the distant, untouchable figure. She was sharp, direct, and unafraid to wound. Crockett, for her part, seemed to grow stronger with every line, her fire undimmed, her words echoing with conviction. The clash had become a spectacle, and America could not look away. Crockett leaned forward, ready to deliver another barrage, but Ivanka struck first. Her words were crisp, measured, and devastatingly sharp. "You call yourself fearless, but fear hides in every speech you give. Fear that if you stop shouting, no one will listen. Fear that if the spotlight leaves you, the truth about your own failures will finally be seen." The crowd erupted into a mix of gasps and cheers. For a moment, the Congresswoman looked caught off guard, her prepared rhythm broken. Ivanka seized the silence. "The difference between us, Congresswoman," she continued, "is that I don't need to scream to be heard. And tonight, your volume has drowned out your credibility." That line detonated across the nation. Within minutes, clips of Ivanka's declaration dominated every news channel. Analysts debated whether it was rehearsed or spontaneous, but the impact was undeniable. Hashtags like #Savage Clapback and #Ivanka Strikes trended alongside furious responses from Crockett's supporters. Late-night hosts scrambled to rewrite monologues, influencers rushed to post reactions, and memes flooded social feeds before the debate had even ended. For the Trump loyalists, it was vindication. Ivanka had not only defended her family, but humiliated one of their fiercest critics with surgical precision. For Crockett's base, however, it was a call to arms. They argued that Ivanka's words were nothing more than the polish of privilege, a performance designed to protect a dynasty. But no one could deny that Crockett's silence in that moment gave the impression that Ivanka had landed the heavier blow. Jasmine, never one to back down, attempted to recover. She raised her voice, aiming to rally the audience again. "You can mock me all you want," she snapped, "but I will never stop speaking truth to power. And if America has to choose between your family's corruption and my so-called volume, they will choose the truth." Her supporters cheered, but the rhythm had shifted. Ivanka's earlier line lingered in the air, repeated in newsrooms, podcasts, and every trending thread online. Ivanka's decision to strike not with a shout but with cutting calmness had turned the tide. Even political commentators who disliked her admitted she had delivered a masterstroke, the kind of moment that defines political theater for years. The climax of the clash arrived when Ivanka, in one final strike, spoke words that left even her critics momentarily speechless. She leaned toward the microphone, her tone unwavering, and declared, "Congresswoman, when history remembers this night, it won't remember your anger. It will remember your silence after my words." The audience exploded. Some cheered, others booed, but everyone knew they had just witnessed a defining moment. Crockett attempted to respond, but her voice was nearly drowned out by the roar of the room. The clip traveled instantly, shared by millions, dissected in real time. The narrative was sealed. Ivanka had not just clapped back, she had commanded the stage and left her opponent struggling to reclaim it. As the dust settled, the confrontation transformed into a cultural flashpoint. Cable news ran the replay on a loop, political panels erupted with clashing interpretations, and social media split into two warring camps. Supporters of Crockett framed Ivanka's attack as elitist bullying, proof that the Trump family dismissed strong black voices as inconvenient. Supporters of Ivanka argued she had exposed Crockett as loud but empty, all fury with no foundation. The debate was no longer about who said what, but about what it meant for America itself. Was Ivanka's clapback a defense of her family's honor or a weapon of privilege? Was Crockett's fiery resistance a symbol of truth or a performance too easily dismantled? The questions rippled through every corner of the country. By the next morning, the clash was headline news in every major outlet. Editorial boards weighed in, podcasts released emergency episodes, and ordinary Americans argued in workplaces and homes. Families were split, friends debated fiercely, and the country once again found itself reflecting its deep divisions through the prism of two women locked in the verbal war. But beneath the noise, one truth emerged. Ivanka Trump had stepped into the arena in a way no one anticipated, and her words had left a mark that could not be erased. Even critics admitted that the confrontation had elevated her voice into the center of the national conversation. The final message was clear. This was no ordinary exchange, no fleeting moment of political theater. It was a collision of power and defiance, privilege and resistance, played out live before millions. Ivanka's mockery and her savage clapback had not only silenced a formidable critic, but reminded America of the raw force of words in shaping perception. For some, it was a chilling reminder of the Trump family's ability to dominate any narrative. For others, it was proof of the relentless need to keep challenging them. Either way, the night ended with the same conclusion. America was speechless, and in that silence, the battle lines of the future had been redrawn.